Number 8, LSU, 3-point favorite against Arkansas. A lot of 3-point spreads this week. I love it. Absolutely love it. The over-under I have is 116 receiving yards for Luke Has, friend of the program. The Arkansas tight end had 116 yards receiving.
What are we doing, man? Come on, bro.
Here's the good news.
Body shot after body. I got to get up. We got to fight at some point. They won't let me back in Baton Rouge after today.
A little spitting up blood in the corner. He's like, I'm fine.
I didn't hear no bell.
Luke Has only has 109 receiving yards this season. 3 SEC games. He's got 3 catches for 21 yards. Bummer. Friend of the program. I'm surprised by this because in addition to just really liking how he looked in the first part of last season before he got hurt, I liked how Bobby Petrino got the tight ends involved at A&M. I thought that was a real strength of their offense last year. Mm-hmm. He's seen his snap count kind of go in the wrong direction lately. And I wonder if just we talk about like in basketball, if you're a cold shooter, just see one go through the net. Mm-hmm. Maybe for Luke Has, it's just seeing those LSU uniforms that makes him go, all right, we're going to be good. We're going to be good. And obviously a lot of that could depend on whether or not Taylor Green is a go for this game. Early indications are that he is making progress with the lower body injury that sidelined him against Tennessee. It helped that they had the bye week last week. So give him a little bit of extra time. But if it's not him, it's an entirely different offense with Malachi Singleton. We saw that down the stretch against Tennessee. Probably the same thing with different Arkansas rushing attack if Jaquindon Jackson is banged up, though I would expect Braylon Russell to have a significant role no matter what. He is a unique matchup that I think they realize, like, as great as Jaquindon Jackson's been, we kind of need to preserve him. Get Braylon Russell involved because that dude's 6'1", 253. He is a whole lot of meat coming through. All right. Like, that is a guy that is going to be featured heavily. And if you're going to embrace the hog, you're going to embrace the 6'1", 253-pound running back at your disposal with very little tread on those tires. I don't feel particularly great about the Arkansas offense consistently moving the ball downfield against an improved but still vulnerable at times LSU defense. But one can still be had on the back end of that LSU defense if Swinson, if Weeks, if those guys can't get home. Now, last week, they got home. It felt like they were constantly harassing Jackson Dart in that game. It is a huge money matchup with Landon Jackson against Will Campbell and or Emory Jones, depending on how they'd use him. I would think with the way that Landon Jackson usually lines up, it's going to be a lot more Will Campbell on the blind side. Will Campbell's had so many of these games this year. And that's kind of why, like, coming into the year, I was like, I think he's going to have the best chance to be that first-round pick of the SEC of anybody. He's not going to necessarily be the highest SEC player drafted, but look at all these matchups. I feel like every single week we're just like, oh, huge statement game coming up for Will Campbell and that, those LSU offensive tackles. But I think that LSU kind of neutralizes what Arkansas does best, which is, usually Eric Gregory and Landon Jackson, having those guys kind of feast on the defensive line, kind of set the table for the rest of that defense and be able to frustrate inexperienced quarterbacks. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere in Fayetteville. And I realize I'm a sucker for saying this with that spread at LSU -3. Everything about that spread is going, buddy, Arkansas is going to have another thing coming for him, but I'm going to go LSU to win by 2 touchdowns. I'm going to go LSU 27-13.
This is a pretty interesting matchup for a couple of reasons. I would argue that Arkansas might be better off without a hurt Taylor Green.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
So we're looking at these two teams, right? Where LSU truly has the swarm defense, all right? Kane Womack be dang. They had, 3-4 players like really making an impact. And if you're Taylor Green and you're not able to take off and you're Taylor Green and when you are right, you're still kind of throwing the ball against the wind and watching it blow into DB's heads. It's not just like they have Harold Perkins. This is the classic, what is it? Who's the center for the Knicks that he went down and they made the finals? Patrick Ewing. Yeah. Yeah. This is the classic theory. Like the Ewing theory, right? Yeah. Where it's like, okay, Harold Perkins, if you told me LSU was number 4 nationally in sacks before the year, I'd be like, wow, great Harold Perkins year. It's like, brother, he's been out for the year since like early September. He has not been a factor at all of those numbers. And it's weeks, it's Braden Swinson. It's kind of the swarm. Like I said, it's whoever's up first. And if you're Taylor Green and you're a little bit not right, you're a little bit slower, a little bit hampered, that's going to force you into turnovers. And then I think on the other side, I think you exactly hit on that. I respect the mess out of Landon Jackson. But if I had to design a human being to neutralize Landon Jackson, Will Campbell is that guy. It's terrifying. I sent you a clip of it today. His stance is like actually kind of goofy footed, and the amount of power that Will Campbell is able to generate, the amount of just force and torque he is when he kind of looks like he's like off his footing the entire time. And then you see a guy running at him at full speed and they just get stopped. Like they hit a brick wall. And it's like, how is he doing this? He's barely using his legs. And it's like, once he gets, as weird as that sounds, like, cause I know Brad Davis is a great coach and Brian Kelly does that, but it feels like he has another tier to go once he gets to the NFL, because he just looks like he doesn't have that like very clean get off the way that a lot of these linemen do. So that being said, we already saw last week a pretty good amount of pressure on the interior by Ole Miss. But if the interior was the weakness of LSU's offensive line, and Tennessee, and Arkansas is a team that is an exterior team, that's LSU's bread and butter, So I know, this has been two close games under Brian Kelly and Sam Pittman, right? The one in Fayetteville a couple of years ago, the Harold Perkins game, where like everybody had the flu. It was the only bad offensive game I've ever seen Jaden Daniels have in my life. He was out there, him and Harold Perkins were like throwing up on the sidelines. Was it clam chowder they were giving him?
Clam chowder that they had on the sideline. Who doesn't want some nice clam chowder ready to go? That'll warm you up at 11 a.m. when it's 25 degrees out.
Ugh. All Brian Kelly had to do was get some gumbo. Naturally, he got clam chowder.
Golly, how did he mess that up?
How did he, looking back on that, all he had to do to be ingratiating with the people of Louisiana. But yeah, and then last year was the opposite, right? It was the back and forth game. So I found myself clenching the old cheeks for a good 115 minutes against Arkansas. If we played 120 over the last
21. They won Death Valley at night. They won that. Arkansas won that game. So that's 3 years in a row.
I've been clenching cheeks for 3 years then. You're so right about
seriously.
that. That was the one that I feel like it was an overtime game. That was the game I was talking about last podcast with Nussmeier. And so point being, like, I do think this is finally the year that LSU pulls away. I don't know what it is about, Sam Pittman or whatever he has going on, but they've almost won a low scoring game. They've almost won a high scoring game. This one does feel like, though, eventually LSU's got to just stop running these weird zodiac formations and just running the ball. It's so funny to me, and I don't get it. So, yeah, I think LSU's defensive improvement, I mean, again, that is something that you were more right than I was about. I thought they would still be kind of lost on the back end, but Zy Alexander being healthy has been next level. Yeah. And I think those linebackers, particularly weeks, have come around to the point where I'm not as worried about. Why did I just say that? I'm not as worried about Haz. Here we go.
Yeah, watch this. This is the breakout game. It's coming. If a breakout game comes, I don't think Haz owns Louisiana like Harold Perkins still owns the entire state of Arkansas.
Right.
But the conversation starts. Conversation starts when you do it year over year. Andrew Armstrong has been a really nice player for him. Would expect to see a lot of Zy Alexander on him. Would expect as well Travis Williams. Don't think he's going to be shying away from the matchup with Landon Jackson and Will Campbell, but a lot of stunts. Why wouldn't you? I mean, stunt up front. Don't try and make this a one-on-one with those two guys every single time, because you might win a couple of those, but your chances of getting after that LSU interior offensive line seem a little bit better. But think of the conversations we're having about Sam Pittman if he beats Tennessee and LSU in back-to-back games as top 10 teams. How about that? On the table and not that crazy.
And I will say by running style, actually, I can't believe this. By running style, this is actually a game that I don't hate Josh Williams in because he's kind of a better between the tackles runner. Whereas Caden Durham, if you look at what Arkansas has done well with the 3-3-5 tight, they're able to kind of track guys that want to move laterally. So I won't be as upset if we get as much Josh Williams. We're going to get it regardless. So I just won't be upset this time.
Caden Durham, sitting there with 3 carries in the fourth quarter for 25 yards, and LSU fans are just pulling their hair out. That's on the table.
You know what? You're right. I'm one of the few that, because I had a group chat called Josh Williams hate group. I get it, but this time he's a nice dude. The thing about him is he just keeps fighting people after he gets 3 yards. So I'm just worried that one day that's going to cost us a game. Didn't against Florida last year. Anyway,
fair, very true.